Hey, welcome to session 4, How to Create Better Sermon Images with AI. This is Daryl Stetler. I'm the creator of the Sermon Illustrator, the AI tool that helps you brainstorm 30 illustrations in 30 seconds. And I am sharing this with you to help you do a better job of creating sermon images with AI. It's never been easier to visually present the gospel than it is right now. So visuals matter a lot in modern preaching because people are visual learners. And images, they create memory and emotion. They help reinforce those things. And so it just makes it more shareable and it makes it more sticky by connecting with imagination and emotion. So it's kind of how people learn these days, right? So sermon graphics are really part of that first impression. Screens, social, slides, plus they make it easy to follow up with that same emotion later on social and places like that. So I want to be clear that I'm not saying that they do the work of the Holy Spirit, right? Images and art can't do that, but they are in harmony with how God created humans and how humans learn in the culture we live in today. So let's talk about what makes a good sermon image. So first of all is, I would argue, it's simplicity. This is what I call the Seth Godin principle. Seth Godin has a famous PowerPoint or a TED Talk years ago where he talked about everybody's using PowerPoint wrong because they just like read their words on a slide. He said you should never have more than 3 words on a slide, sometimes 0 if you can get away with it. And so I agree. One idea, one emotion, one image, no words, no clutter. So simplicity, relevance, like it should be obvious that it connects to your theme or scripture. The point should be the scripture, right? And the image should serve it, not the other way around. Don't use something that makes it less likely that they'll remember the scripture. It's something relevant to that. And then I would argue that emotion is a big part of that. Hope, tension, reflection, awe, those kinds of things. It should connect with emotion. And then contrast and composition, like something worthwhile and excellent, right? Think like a designer. You want to grab attention and you do want to hold it. So it's got to be something that serves, not controls, but it also does that by bringing attention to and holding attention on the story you're telling and helping people see it in their mind's eye. Also, keep it consistent. If you're telling a Bible story, keep one feel all the way through. And so we're going to talk about how to use AI now to create sermon images. So personally, here's what I do, and I'll talk a little bit more about this down below. So I use the Sermon Illustrator, which is an AI that I custom created with carefully crafted prompts, which we're going to talk more about below. I would just tell you, pay attention to your ratio, like 16:9 ratio most of the time for screens. So that's the typical one for PowerPoint, like newer widescreen PowerPoint. And then 1:1 for social posts, like square basically for social posts, and then verticals for stories or reels, if that's the format that you're going to be using. Luckily, you can tell the AI to do all these things and it understands what you're talking about when you're trying to create that image. So let's talk about some best practices for crafting prompts. So first of all, be specific. I'm going to highlight, underline, and italicize that because it is the biggest key. In the prompt, mention the setting, the lighting, emotion, the style. Maybe it's a photo, maybe it's painting, maybe it's cartoon style or Marvel comic or whatever. Maybe it's charcoal drawing, maybe it's abstract. Just include details about what you want characters to be doing. Like, I want their hands raised in praise. You can do that. That's cool. You can say that kind of stuff. You can also include symbolic or spiritual language, such as, giving the idea of burdens lifted or light breaking through or chains falling. You can include that kind of symbolic language. It'll try to capture that. It helps it understand what emotion you're trying to communicate. And then try multiple prompts and tweak it till you get the emotion that you want. Always check your images. AI does struggle with some details at times. Like, for instance, hands. I did one yesterday, literally, and the person had 3 fingers instead of 4. Jesus actually had 3 fingers instead of 4. We'll show that. I'll show you that in a minute. So hands and feet, physics, where people are looking, it struggles with those kinds of details at times, like eye line. It doesn't understand eye contact and things like that very well yet. It's getting better. It's getting way better, actually. But it does still sometimes struggle. So here's a big warning. check your images. I know I just said that, but now I want to make it big. All right, but here's to tell you why. Because I really, really blew it here one time. I didn't check an image. I created it on Sunday morning. I was like, I need to add a good illustration. And because I use the Sermon Illustrator, which is on this page, I'll talk to you more about that in a minute. Because I use that, I could add it, but I didn't check it. I broke my own rule. And I was doing a story of a missionary to an island in the South Pacific. And unfortunately, the image contained a woman who was, let's just say, not modest or appropriate in the background. It was very, very much like a native tribe. And so, considering that fact, that's not the thing, that does not serve, right? It does not serve. That is going to control and it's going to draw attention you do not want to deal with. And so, always check your images. I've also had a couple of other awkward moments where people are like, I think it's an AI image, isn't it? So the main point here that I want to say, my fifth main point, is really integrating your images into the ministry overall. So you want to use these in sermon slides or countdowns or title graphics. You can turn them into invitations. You can turn them into social clips, devotional visuals, those kind of things. So it gives you a lot of possibilities of how you could reuse them. So here is literally an actual tutorial on how I create images as I do this. So I've been through a lot of iterations and a lot of work to figure out how to talk to the AI so it understands. So here's an early prompt that I did. I'm going to tell a Bible story this morning for children, ages 5 to 12. It's about King Josiah from the Bible. I want to create some images I can use. I need a 16:9 ratio for my PowerPoint, so I did get the ratio thing right. Can you create one of King Josiah becoming king at age 8? And here's what it gave me. Okay, so I didn't understand yet that it saw the ages 5 to 12, and it's like, okay, he wants a kid's cartoon look. And I said, actually, that's not what I'm looking for. Let's do the photos in a photorealistic style instead of cartoon. So here's what it gave me. Okay, cool. Now, this doesn't look like quite age 8 to me. It looked more like 5 or something like that. So I was like, great, please do it again and make him a little older. This was before I understood that I could edit, which I'm going to show you how to do in a little bit. But it did, and it created one a little bit older. Yeah, very nice. Now, it actually works up here, and it did this thing where it was like it tried to put words in here, and it had looks like 2 eyes in that because the crown messed with it. So sometimes you'll get strange artifacts and things like that, and you will get things like this guy's hands right over here. Let's see if I can get it for you. This guy's hands, like what in the world is going on there? And so you just need to understand that they're getting better all the time, but it is definitely a little bit of a challenge to get all of those details right. So let me show you what it did after I said that. I said, great, this is the style I'm looking for. Let's do some more. Can you do one of the temple of God falling into disrepair? So it created this image. And so I was like, okay, I can work with that. It conveys the emotion. Now, some of the details are still, this is an older version of ChatGPT, so some of the details with things like, the physics of some things, or the detail of like these pieces on the ground right here, it may not be perfect sometimes, but it gives me the dominant emotion I'm looking for. Then I said, please make one of Josiah deciding to repair and restore the temple. He's telling people his plan. And it gave me this image, okay? And this is what I mean by eye lines. Sometimes the eyes are not always right in AI, but they're getting better and better, especially with this latest version. Now do one of the priests finding the book of the law in a dusty, neglected storage room in the temple. So you hear the detail, right? A priest, and it's not just a person, but a priest finding the book of the law in a dusty, neglected storage room. Okay, so this idea here's the dusty, neglected storage room, and he's finding the scroll, the book of the law. And so this has gotten better and better over the years. And I'm going to show you literally, these ones I did literally just yesterday. I'm going to walk through exactly 5 image prompts and how you might create them. So here's what I've learned. You want to do a prompt, and so I said, I want to do an image of the story of the prodigal son's return, and I give the reference so that it understands literally what I'm talking about, like there's actual content there. A weathered father runs down a dusty road. So here are these details. Weathered father runs down a dusty road at sunset, arms outstretched. Okay, so here's time of day, to embrace a younger man in torn clothes. The scene is warm, emotional, and cinematic, capturing grace and reconciliation. You hear all the concepts I'm looking for. Here's what it got. Okay, so you've got sunset, you've got torn clothes, you've got arms outstretched, you've got so, and sometimes it'll mess up little small details, but you can get away with it. Like, for instance, this guy's got 2 right feet. Okay, but it is, probably some of those tiny things people may not notice. Now, this is a painting. Obviously, it's imitating a painting. That's usually what happens with AI in biblical scenes initially, is it reaches for a painting style. And so I just want to clarify to you that you can do this. So I could use this one right out of the box, but let's play with a little bit with these prompts. Okay, so I said, great, make it more photorealistic instead of a painting. And here is what that produced. Okay, so it created it like a photo, which, incidentally, it put it into modern clothing. So here's guys wearing jacket and jeans and all this. And so I actually really like this. Like, this is really cool with the modern clothing. It's like it kind of captivating and subverts your expectations. I do like it. But if you're going to go for period accuracy, you need to change it. So I use this prompt. Okay, but let's give the father a longer beard and dress them both in period clothing. Okay, so this is, maybe I could have included this in the beginning, although it actually understood that in the beginning. But when I changed it to a photo, it ditched the beard and went with a modern beard because it's modern photos. In other words, the AI has been trained on these kinds of things. And so dress them in period clothing, here's what that produced. Okay, there we go. Yep, that's it. That's what I'm looking for right there. And so there are things you could go on to do with that if you wanted. You could be like, can we zoom out further? Let's keep this same image and zoom out further from this from the father and son. Like something like that. You could go on, but I'm happy. I'm happy with that. That gives me the emotion that I'm looking for. The son is reluctant. The son is awkward. He's in torn clothing. The father is coming hard and rejoicing. That communicates the prodigal son comparable. There we go. All right, so let me give you another example. Elijah on Mount Carmel. And so here's the prompt I used. I want to do an image of the story of Elijah on Mount Carmel. Okay, give him a dramatic moment of fire falling from heaven onto a soaked stone altar as a lone prophet stands with arms raised. The sky is stormy, the light is intense, symbolizing power and divine presence. No text or captions or anything like that. By the way, I actually tried this one once ahead of time, and I didn't mention this. And once in a while, it will think that you want this in the actual image, and it'll put that as a title at the top of the image. Sometimes that will happen. So in this, it doesn't always, but sometimes it does. So I said no text or captions or anything like that. Please do the image in 16:9 ratio, and it gave me this. Okay. Cool. So here's the fire falling. Here's stones. Here's the water on the ground around it, and water's still running off. It's kind of cool, running off the altar. But I wanted to convey more about the crowd of people watching. So it's like there's nobody in the image. It's as if he's alone, which, remember, that's what I said. I said a lone prophet. So I could have probably included the detail about the people are gathered around bowing down. So I did. I said, okay, let's surround that scene with people back in the shadows who are bowing down and fearful. Now, when I said that, here's what it gave me. Excuse me. It gave me this. It said, so it kind of changed it to a painting again. Again, sometimes it changes the style without asking. It made it more like a painting, probably because most of the biblical scenes the AI was trained on would be like from classical art, and paintings. So if you want to change something small, here's something you can do. You can use the edit feature instead of fully regenerating the image. So I went back to this original image, and here's how you do that. Okay, so I clicked the original image, and it pulled it up in this little pop-up window on top of ChatGPT. And you click this little button up here in the corner. Excuse me. You click this little button up here in the corner where it has the little edit pencil. So I clicked that, and it gives you a selector. and I selected these areas in this gap right here, and I highlighted the areas where I wanted the changes, and I said, this is great. Back in the shadows here, let's put fearful people of Israel bowing down like in the story. So here's what it produced. There we go. Okay, so that gives me what I'm looking for right there. That's it. There's the clouds, there's the fire, there's the, there's the people bowing down. Here's the prophet with his hands raised, the water around. Like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about right there. Now, just to show you what's possible, I actually did another version. I said, great, let's redo that in a vintage charcoal sketch style. So here's what that gave me and produced. All right, so here's your vintage charcoal. So you see the lines and the charcoal. It's really, really cool. Then I said, great, I'd like to change this entire thing to a watercolor painting. Here's what it gave me. All right, so it's this classic watercolor, dabs and all that. So now I actually asked it to, I said, I want this whole thing in a Marvel cartoon comic style. And I didn't actually finish that before I finished this. So I'll show it to you. I actually did it for a couple of others. So I'll show it to you in a later one. All right. Jesus calming the storm. Here's the prompt. I want to do an image of the story of Jesus calming the storm. Small wooden boat on a dark, stormy sea with Jesus standing at the bow, hands raised. Disciples cling to the boat in fear as the sky begins to break open with calming light. Cinematic, awe-inspiring. Let's create it in 16:9, make it photorealistic. Here's what that gave me. All right. Now, cool, all right, but I want to point out, always check your images, all right? So you see Jesus has 3 fingers, and so it's like it's not like he's missing a finger. It sometimes has struggle with hands, all right? It just does. Now, let me point out something. These disciples over here are literally outside the boat, okay? This is what I mean by like artifacts, strange artifacts. So 2 of the disciples, 3 of the disciples, 4 of the disciples are actually outside the boat, okay? So always check your images. You can't just jump them in there. Just take a look at them with a critical eye and try to figure out what that looks like. So in situations like this, you can highlight the affected areas and ask it to change like I did a while ago. However, the disciples not being inside the boat is actually difficult for the AI to understand. It doesn't understand it. Like sometimes it's a little bit like a dog. If you point across the room to something to a dog, the dog is not likely to understand what you mean. It's more likely to like sniff your finger and see what you're trying, So it's a little difficult for it to understand. Occasionally you have to ditch it and start over. This is what I did on this one. So I put in the following prompt. Let's completely make the image over again. Use the original prompt, but this time let's make the boat larger, enough for several men to fit inside. So basically, I think what happened is it did small boat, and it's like, well, there's several disciples in the story, and it put some of them outside the boat. It didn't understand. They're cowering as the waves strike the boat. Here's what it gave me. Okay, that'll work, right? I can do that. Got the hands right. Jesus is standing up. There's only 4 disciples in there, but we can live with it, all right? That's what I'm looking for. Then I said, great, now can you make that entire image done in a Marvel cartoon comic book style? Here's what it gave me. Cool, huh? That's pretty neat. So just those classic comic book lines and kind of exaggerated features and so it's pretty cool. So depending on what you're trying to do, you can create some really neat and unique images. So here's another one example. Paul and Silas in prison. I said I want to do an image of the story of Paul and Silas in prison. 2 men sit in a dark jail cell, their feet in stocks, singing with joy. It's obvious they've been beaten. Chains and shackles fasten their wrists. Let's do 16:9 and photorealistic. Here's the image. Okay. All right. So cool. There's a little bit of strange something here going on with the stocks, but it's probably where I would be like, all right, I can live with this. I can live with it. Then I wrote, okay, same scene, same men. But, and this is how you can follow up sometimes, but a sudden burst of light and movement suggests an earthquake. The atmosphere is hopeful, reverent, and tense. A jail door behind them has opened, and firelight flickers as a jailer's on the way. Now, you notice I didn't mention the chains falling off. And so it's going to give me that, but they're still in chains, right? And I was like, it's not the... This is how you can you kind of get used to doing this, and even when you're really used to doing it, sometimes you have to get started and then go from there. So these two guys basically does look like the same two guys. And that's important because sometimes it will remake them. It'll remake these guys. Since it's generating every pixel every time, it'll remake the whole thing. And so I wanted to get the chains had fallen off, and I should have put that in. So I went to edit to change the details without actually redoing the entire thing. So here's what I did. I said, let's have their chains fallen off and their hands raised in praise. Let's make the stocks broken off their feet, laying shattered on the floor, and the shackles have fallen from their hands and are laying on the floor also. Now, it didn't get it. Oh, well, this I highlighted the areas I was talking about. So here's what it gave me. All right, so the chains are on the floor. It didn't quite get the shackles or the stocks gone, and there's a little something strange here with the Apostle Paul or Silas's feet, just a little bit, but I think it's workable to where the dominant emotion is sufficient at this stage, that's about the level of good you can get from that. So let's do Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Here's the prompt. I actually didn't include some of the things this time. I left out photorealistic, and I left out the title, like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, just to see what it would do, and to give you some idea that you can sometimes, you can fudge details sometimes without it. So here's what it gave me. As you can see, it went with kind of an oil painting style, and if you'll notice, Jesus has the wrong number of fingers here. Looks like so. So that's an issue, but I didn't tweak that. It's not bad. It's actually nice. But if you need photorealistic, better say so. So I said, let's make it photorealistic, and here's what it gave me. All right. So here's Jesus, and this time the hands appear to be at least correct enough to where we can get it. It doesn't always understand the angles of hands, and sometimes another finger that's behind another one, it's not always sure what that is. All right. So just to show you how it can be changed, I said, awesome. Can you do that one in a Marvel comic book style? And here we go. All right. So you get the idea. By the way, it's got some disciples in the background there. That's interesting and kind of cool. So you get the idea. This is how you AI prompt. Now, this is all part of my overall sermon, or my overall video course called How Pastors Can Use AI for Sermon Prep, so it can speed up and make more effective your sermon prep, and that's all available by going to some of my stuff. I'll provide links in the video description. All right. So all of this I did with the Sermon Illustrator. Okay, this is a ChatGPT thing. It aids pastors with illustrations and ensures thematic relevance and visual aids and things like that. It'll do all those things. You can choose Bible passage or topics, and you can do that. If you want access to it, it is free, and you can get absolutely free access to that by going to newstartdiscipleship.com/the-sermon-illustrator. All right, so I'm going to put that email or that link down in the link in the video description below, so you can get access to that if you don't already have it. Thanks a lot. Blessings to you. Bye-bye.